Where did you sleep last night? You probably slept in a structure, under a roof, with climate control, in a comfortable bed, under a blanket, and maybe next to someone you love. Would you miss this sheltered experience if you lost it? Homelessness is a national problem. Veteran homelessness is particularly disturbing. The Department of Veterans Affairs estimates that there are about 200,000 veterans that sleep in the streets. Vietnam veterans are the largest group in this population, but that's changing. Greg Zorova reports that almost 50,000 veterans of the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan are homeless or are at risk of becoming so. Maria Cuomo-Cole's article, Homeless Veterans Deserve a Place in the American Dream, tells us that women now make up to 10% of the total veteran population, in part due to the increased numbers of women in combat roles. The number of veterans that are homeless is disturbing, so what's being done to help? Many individuals and organizations are working hard to end veteran homelessness. They are making some progress. In 2010, President Barack Obama and the Department for Veterans Affairs joined forces and announced a national effort to end homelessness among veterans. Cuomo-Cole's article, Remember Homeless Veterans on Memorial Day, credits their efforts as well as Michelle Obama's 2014 Mayor's Challenge. Cuomo co-chairs Help USA. They advocate home first and then provide an all-inclusive network of services to ensure a successful transition to permanent homelessness or permanent housing for veterans. As Cuomo-Co points out, this approach has proved successful because, quote, it helps create a sense of pride and dignity that can only come from independence and stability, end quote. But not everyone is focused on philanthropic solutions to the problem of homelessness. A number of cities across the nation have enacted legislation that penalizes the homeless, and veteran and non-veteran alike. The laws also criminalize certain charitable individuals and organizations when they try to provide food to the disadvantaged. Local governments should not be allowed to criminalize hunger or to hide the homeless in jail-like shelters. They should not be allowed to criminalize the charitable behavior of organizations or individuals. But that's exactly what's happening in our nation's cities. Robert Marbutt, a homeless consultant, is quoted in Matt Schiavenza's article saying, quote, street feeding is one of the worst things you can do because it keeps people in a homeless state, end quote. Marbutt would have us believe that the homeless stay homeless simply so they can get a free meal. This is simply ludicrous. Laws that discriminate against the homeless and those that try to help them have been enacted across the nation. Sun Sentinel reporter Larry Barzuski tells us that Fort Lauderdale passed anti-feeding legislation after listening to arguments from people like city lobbyist Ron Book, who said, quote, feeding people on the street is sanctioning homelessness. Whatever discourages feeding people on the street is a positive thing, end quote. A 90-year-old World War II veteran, Arnold Abbott, was one of the first individuals cited for violating the law. In Hannah Leventova's article, Abbott states, quote, a policeman pulled my arm and said, drop that plate right now, like it was a gun, end quote. The move to criminalize being hungry and to bind the hands that try to feed them is clearly wrong, and so is the move to hide them from public view. The Pinellas Safe Harbor is a 24/7 shelter located in Daytona Beach. It is operated by the County Sheriff's Department in what used to be a jail. The title of Arthur Delaney's article says it all. Quote, How a training consultant helps America hide the homeless, end quote. Because that's exactly what the shelters do. Delaney describes one such shelter as a, quote, giant chicken coop for humans, end quote. St. Petersburg's homeless are given the option to avoid arrest by spending the day inside a fence that surrounds a parking lot next door to a homeless shelter. Forcing the disadvantaged to live in a de facto jail is wrong. The federal government must take steps to stop the trend to enact this discriminatory legislation. One way to stop local governments from enacting discriminatory legislation is to fight law with law. The United States government has the power to establish a legal end to discriminatory practices by adding the category homeless to the list of protected class groups. Discriminatory practices could no longer be legalized. Protection should be extended to cover those engaged in providing food, clothing, and shelter to the homeless. The discriminatory laws don't separate the veteran from the non-veteran. Protection would be extended to all people considered homeless. Clearly, I can't solve this huge problem in this short speech, but I can point out that we already have categories of people on the protected list because everyone deserves equal protection under the law. In Remember Homeless Veterans on Memorial Day, Cuomo Cole reminds us that veterans fought hard to defend our right to live free. Now we have the opportunity to fight for their rights. Real political power is in the hands of the people willing to take a stand to do what's right. And what's right is to defend the ideals of our Constitution, which proclaim that all are created equal under the law.